All right, welcome back to another episode of Serie A Podcast for the fans. We're back again. 5 games played in the season and one game each in the Champions League. We finally got a taste of some real Serie A football, some real Champions League football. I'm here with my co-host, Migueli. Migueli, what are you most excited about so far this season and how are you?
Mate, I love the free-flowing football. Napoli has been playing. AC's been playing. Um, Pretty much like Roma's been, playing exceptionally well. Lazio, you know. I think the real disappointment is probably Inter. They haven't really changed much, in my opinion, anyway. But it's exciting to see, a lot of the teams from last year so far this season look like they can be real big contenders for the title.
Yeah, well, I think that there's a couple of surprise packets there. And no one was really expecting Atalanta to be first at this stage, and definitely not even Udinese to really, apart from the first game against AC Milan, they've pretty much been undefeated. They've been quite impressive. Udinese as well. Do you think Udinese will fall off eventually?
Depends, some teams can go, half the season brilliant, and then, like anything, injuries, fatigue, the World Cup's coming up, all those, elements can happen. So, look, I think that if they keep going the way they're going, they're going to be, top 5 at least, top 6. But, let's just see, wait and see.
Well, putting Udinese at top 6, you know what? I'd love to see that. I read them off. You know what I mean? I did ride them off at the start of the year. I just fought on previous seasons, but realistically, when you look at it, they actually competed very well against AC Milan, and they just bumped Roma. So you're talking about two teams that are everyone expected to be inside the top 7. And so it wouldn't actually surprise me to see a team like Udinese actually get the job done. And, everyone sort of thought the same with Fiorentina, and they've been pretty consistent as well with the way they've been playing. Vincenzo Italiano is obviously a brilliant coach. I love him. And they were unlucky against Napoli. Is Fiorentina another team that pretty much definitely top 10, but how high do you reckon?
I find with them, they can, like from previous season, they're very hit and miss. They can beat big teams, but then, end up bloody, mid-table, whatnot. This season, I think I'd probably place them maybe 7th, 8th, maybe.
Yeah,
just depends,
I think so too. I think we've because they're in European football, so that's going to be exciting as well to see in the Confederations Cup, the Conference League. Sorry, I think they'll go far. I think if they're going to get kicked out, they'll get kicked out by a big team or even a team dropping back in it from the Europa League. So I'm expecting big things in Europe from Fiorentina. I reckon they'll go pretty hard at it. They might suffer in the league for it, but You mentioned I don't even know what to call them these days because they used to be, everyone used to call them Inter. Around the world, it was Internazionale. But, new owner, new badge, new name, new sponsor, and it's Inter Milano. And
Inter Milano, yeah.
How do you rate their start of their season in comparison to city rivals AC Milan and top contenders Napoli?
Well, I wouldn't. Judging by the derby, there's no comparison. It's like chalk and cheese the way they played. Look, the way I see it is that Inter haven't progressed. They got an aging squad. They're still playing the same sort of defensive, football. in the derby, AC were just pressing. And look, the Inter just couldn't contain them. To be honest, the way things are going, and if they don't really change much, I don't even think they'll make the top four. The way things are going, they need signings this January. Otherwise, who knows?
Well, do you think that a lot of people are thinking that Inter are actually a lot better than what they really are, considering that you have a look at the team that won the competition. Now, a lot of people would say that it was a COVID competition because teams like Lecce were missing 9 players at some stage, and most teams had the same thing, and that they really won a campaign that other teams had to sell players, and like with Juventus, they got rid of a lot of players at a loss, just because of financial problems. So Inter won a title, but I really would have hoped that they backed up last year and actually won the title, but they pretty much come back to the field, and by losing 2 players, that really shouldn't happen. I don't, like you said, they got an aging sort of team. There's no, if you had to put their team down on paper, there's not much value in that team apart from a few players like that are actually really good players. And Lukaku was terrible last season for Chelsea, and realistically was only good under Conte. So with Simone Inzaghi having like Ciro Immobile up front, Ciro and Lukaku completely different players. So I kind of agree with you where I'm looking at Inter and I'm thinking maybe 6th.
I think so too. 5th or 6th, if that. Especially Lukaku, the great signing, or should I say the great flop? Realistically, what has he done in a big game, big match? He really does really little to none. Who else would you rely on?
Well, this is the problem with Inter. It seems like Martinez is very hot and cold. He's one of those purple patch sort of strikers, something like Crespo was. I remember Crespo when he was in form, he just wouldn't stop scoring, and Martinez sort of reminds me of that too. When he's on, and when he's off, he's dreadful, And I really think that there's like Dzeko's really getting old now. He's an experienced player, and with service he can get a job done, but he not for a full season. And
well, he's a super sub realistically. Like, look what he done with us. He jumped on. Look, he popped up and scored a goal, but you need more than that.
Well, I think that that's the whole thing. I think that Milan have their super subs with Ibra and Giroud, that they can come on and change a game, and Dzeko is the same thing, but I don't think that Inter have the complete package there. They're missing on the wings. Bastoni has, in a 3-man defense, he's not that bad, but in a 4-man defense, we've seen with Italy, he's just not a leader in the defense. He's a very good attacking central defender. He can assist a lot of goals, but in a 3-man defense, there's the other 2 sort of defenders that can hold back and hold the line. But I think that we're finding out this year with De Vrij and Skriniar, they're getting on a little bit, and if they have a bad game, Bastoni's just not there. And I've been seeing he's been getting subbed quite often. Acerbi's coming into the team. I don't think that's the fix, because he's a little bit slow as well. So I can't see Inter actually, consistently week in, week out with a defense that's not that great, a goalkeeper that's not that great. One side of your wing back.
They lack creativity in the middle. Like, there's no real creativity. I guess because they're a more defensive-minded team, but you still need that creative midfielder.
Yeah, well, it's that counter-attacking style that Inzaghi loves to play, and I think that a lot of Inter fans they got blindsided by the media. They got blindsided with Hakimi, and they got blindsided with Lukaku. I actually feel the real star of the show was actually Christian Eriksen. You know, he
Oh,
started
yeah.
playing. He started playing mid-season, and into it coming second when he started playing, and he only started playing because Vidal got hurt, and he changed that season for them. And I don't think that Inter have the creative midfielder that they need to organise a team around. And I feel like Barella is sort of like he's not the best defensive midfielder. He's not the best attacking midfielder. He's just the guy that runs around in the middle of the park and collects a lot of balls. And you know, realistically, like I think that they're lacking throughout the whole team, and I think it's going to be a pretty ordinary season.
Mm.
But on the
Yeah.
other side of Milan, the red side, red and black.
It's right.
How do you rate their Milan season, AC Milan season so far, and where do you see them finishing off?
Look, I'm happy. They're playing really well. They're consistent. They haven't lost since I don't know. They haven't. What are we now? September. I mean, early January. Sorry, early January. Earlier through the last season, like
Yeah,
probably maybe
I
March
think
or so. Or
I think their last loss was probably against Inter, actually in the Coppa Italia. But I mean, few would actually say that was like, I mean, they're going for the title, so I'm
yeah,
not what you can make about that. But yeah, in the league, they've been very
yeah.
consistent.
Yeah, so I think that's good. The way they've been playing is brilliant. Like, obviously there's always room to improve, but I like that free flowing pressing. I find that I like how a lot of players aren't selfish and whatnot. I did, however, think our striker is it Oji, our new striker. I felt that look, it was the first game, but he was a little bit selfish. I know it could be first game jitters and whatnot, but that's what I like about Giroud and and who else, Liao and even Tonali, like whoever's up there, they're not very selfish. They like to pass, look for that other option and whatnot. Our first game away, I find that, in the Champions League was obviously we drew. I think that was pretty exceptional. Like, you're away from home and whatnot. Um, if I was to have a prediction for the end of the season of where we're going to stand, look, not that obviously I'm a fan, but I can easily say first or second the way they're going. Obviously, Napoli's looking strong, Lazio, Juventus could be a surprise, even Roma. But judging by us how we're going now, I think we could take it. With Champions League, look, I'm just happy to get out of the group stages. That's obviously a progression from last season.
Yeah, the way I look at it, I actually believe that AC Milan have the best squad depth in the competition. You could argue with Juventus. They have probably the best three centre backs that they can rely on in the centre back role. That Calabria's there, Florenzi's there on the wings, Theo's on the wing. They're up front. They can change players. Junior Messiah is actually. I really look forward to seeing him play. Every time he plays, I see something special every time. I feel like Milan's got good depth. If they can get Ibra back, and if Ibra can play half a season, I feel like Milan are more the complete package. It's Juventus. They got a really good squad, Juventus. We'll jump on Juventus just one sec because I think Milan will win the league. I think they'll go back to back. I think they get their second star, and we'll go to Juventus. Now Juventus look like they're just killer. They got a lot of good players, but do you think Allegri's tactics are are going to be enough to be successful in Europe or in Serie A? Or do you think that, Allegri out could be the calling very, very soon?
I 100% think that he should be out. I don't think that his style of play really suits Europe. Um, I think it's just too defensive. I think that this season as well in Serie A, the likes of Milan, Napoli, Sarri boy for Lazio, um, even Roma. Well, Roma's, we know Mourinho, but I
Yeah.
think that yeah, it will still struggle even with Atalanta too. So look, I think that either he changes it up with his tactics or it's time for him to go because I do think that they do have a very solid squad. They just need to change the way they're playing and utilize those players, Chiesa and whatnot.
Yeah, well, I'm interested to see what they do. I feel like Vlahovic last season he was very, very frustrated because he was, I believe, ahead in the leading goal scorers when he went to Juventus, and then that defensive sort of play probably stopped him from winning the the leading goal scorer. So I feel like with a full strength team, you just look at it on paper and it's so confusing because you just think that they're going to dominate. Their roster is so good, and they just they look like it in glimpses, and they don't look like the complete package, even with that much star quality. Like it's unbelievable because realistically, they probably should be, undefeated, at the top of the table, but they find themselves struggling, and it's just insane to me. But the surprise packet this year has been Atalanta, I think, for everybody. They virtually, in transfer market, they were very, very quiet on transfer market stage pretty much the whole time. And everyone that I've spoken to has really didn't pick them to be anywhere near the top at all. And yet they're on top after 5 games. So are they another one that, they're on top now, but they're not going to be there for a long time, or do you think that they're going to be a thorn in everyone's side and they're going to remain sort of in contention until the end?
Look, I do believe they are going to always be a thorn. They're always going to be. No one wants to come up against them, later whenever, especially towards the end of the season. Look, just depends. I think that potentially they could be, right up there. I do believe they are definitely a top 4 team. But with all the, with all the team, the strength of all the teams this season, it's going to be tough, eh? So I don't think, even if they don't make the top 4, I feel like the quality of all the other teams is just going to be right up there, and it's just going to be that close that they might even just miss out, or just get it past the line. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the problem right now, is that a lot of these teams are so good, and you watch them play, and then you're like, oh yeah, definitely they're a top 4 team, and you keep on saying it to every team. You know what I mean? Like, because you just see them play so good, but you can only have 4 teams in that top 4. And right now, I don't think, I can't really pick it. I really can't. Napoli are wow. They're just wow. They're another one, surprise packet. They lost Mertens. They lost Insigne. They lost Koulibaly at the back. And everyone sort of thought, oh yeah, nah, they're gone. The president, ADL, the president, he's got to go. And the fans were getting really upset. I believe there was protests before the season, and wow, they're up with them with Manchester City are probably one of the better teams to watch throughout Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the only problem, like I see with them, is depth. I don't see the depth there. I mean, but I didn't see the squad there, to be honest. You know what I mean? I just didn't think that they would be so good. You know, like and their depth could be their downfall. I actually feel like, you know, Mertens was aging. Insigne really, you know, I think he got a couple goals from open play last season. He really didn't do much. It was time for him to go. So Napoli, for me, I'm just enjoying watching them play. But right now, I don't think that they've got what it takes to actually continually do it. And with Spalletti's sort of history of crashing at the halfway mark, that it's another thing that always seems to happen. You know, like they look brilliant and then they just crash. You know, they just, you know, terrible.
I think so too.
Yeah. Now, Jose Mourinho, second years at a club, generally goes on to win the competition.
Ooh, that's true. Sorry?
Can he do it at Roma?
You know what? With Mourinho, anything's possible. You know, I'll put it. Yeah, definitely, he can definitely do it. But yeah, let's just wait and see, because he might be another one where, you know, first half of the season smash it, and then the next half, you know, go downhill. But you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if you know, if they either come second or even win it, for that matter.
Yeah, well, the thing is with Roma is I don't know if they're there because they're the pretenders right now. They haven't. They played good again. They played Juventus, and they went away to Turin and they got the draw. Now, but they played some pretty easy teams as well, Roma. You know what I mean? Like, and they weren't impressive at all against Monza, and then once they got the gift goal, they sort of they ran away with it. But I don't think. I feel like they could be very similar to Inter, you know, and they could sort of just pump all these little teams, but when they get to the bigger teams, they're just not good enough. I feel like I like Belotti going to the team because Tammy Abraham's massively underrated. He's massively underrated. I believe that Mancini at the back needs to step up, because I think that their defense is probably their weakest problem, their Achilles heel, I guess. You know, if they can get to the halfway point and still be in contention, then they might be willing to spend a bit of money, because I don't think the owner's shy of spending money.
Yeah. How do you think Dybala will go?
You know, it's funny because I think everyone likes Dybala. So I don't think there's anyone that hates Dybala. But with Juventus, he was another one that was just very inconsistent. You know, so I feel like,
and injury prone too, wasn't he?
Yeah, and that's where the inconsistency comes. I think even if he was getting on a run, he'd seem to get injured, and you know,
it's disappointing. Like, it's a shame, because I really do think when Dybala's on form and on top, he's world class. Could be one of the best in the world. But then he's hindered by inconsistency and like injuries and whatnot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, you know, every time he played Lazio, he was just a thorn in our side. Like, he scores from absolutely nothing. He's got a knack of changing a game. You know, like instantly. You know, he can turn the game. You know, and he, like I said, he's very well liked. There's nothing to not like about him. You know, and I wish that if he can go injury free for the season, then Yeah, I think that actually boosts Roma up the ladder a lot. You know,
Yeah.
now SS Lazio is an interesting team because last season they were second to Inter in most goals scored, but their defense was horrendous. It was probably like the seventh worst, or even probably possibly lower. Their defense was dreadful. Now they've rejuvenated the team. They've got a much younger team. They didn't sell any star quality players, but I've been watching and they don't seem to be having the same chances up front that they did last season, but they're definitely much stronger at the back. Do you think that Lazio can challenge for a top four spot?
Oh, definitely. Especially when an informed Ciro Immobile, is at his peak of his powers. I like the Sarri ball, the way they're playing. Yeah, I really do think that they are another one that I picked as being third or fourth. Don't I wouldn't knock them out and say they wouldn't win it or come second. But I think realistically, I think maybe the best they'll probably get is probably third or fourth. Only going off Milan possibly winning it, being too strong, and like Juventus and Napoli being higher up there. But I definitely think that Lazio is definitely a top four contender.
Yeah, right now they did buy very young. I do feel like they're going to be sort of on the cuff of fourth, fifth, challenging it out. I believe, we put in all our tips right now, but I think that this World Cup is actually going to destroy a lot of teams, and I feel like we could be on a path to seeing like some teams like Roma and Udinese sort of still in contention with Atalanta, and then all of a sudden, the World Cup comes and everything sort of changes, and just regaining that form after a long preseason is going to be really, really hard. I believe, so yeah, I think our predictions, if we're well off of at the end of the season, then it's fair enough with a World Cup, but the relegation battle. We have Monza, who just had so many injuries and have barely been able to put a team on the park. We've got Cremonese, who got their first points against Sassuolo, and to be honest, they really didn't. They looked pretty ordinary. Sassuolo looked very organised against them, but they lacked up front. But so you got Monza, Cremonese, but you also got Sampdoria in the relegation battle. And with 2 points, but those 2 points are come against Lazio and Juventus. Can you see Sampdoria turning it around and getting out of that relegation zone? Or do you think this is the time, to follow their neighbouring team Genoa down to Serie B?
Oh, look, it's a tough one. Look, anything's possible, but I think that the way their form is now, it's not looking too good, but it's a long season, and I do think that, anything's possible. Like every other season, teams even like that Solomon Tari, the one that came last, yeah. They were like the giant killers. I think they beat us once, they beat everyone once. So, realistically, I know with Milan, their kryptonite was the lower teams would always be inconsistent with that a lot of the times too. So that's the thing. You can't really write off anyone in the league. Like, I think everyone sort of has their kryptonite, and I think that they might be certain times in the season they'll be a thorn in some teams. But look, I think that the best they'll probably achieve will probably just to scrape out of the relegation zone, I think.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, to be honest. I you know, it's good that they got a couple draws. Against Lazio, Romagnoli had a hamstring pull, and in the last couple of minutes, so they had to make a change, and they took advantage of it, and they scored in the 92nd minute. Apart from that, they really had nothing, inside of 80 minutes. It was the last 10 that they just threw everything at Lazio, and on that 10 minutes they deserved the draw, but they weren't that it. There's glimpses there. If they can hold some big teams, then I feel like they can get up. But the problem will be that the balance of the team. If they believe that they got to play that defensive style, then obviously they're not going to be these attacking giants. So scoring goals could be a big problem, particularly if Quagliarella's still in that. He's still in the team. And you know what? He plays. He's got his heart on his sleeve and he plays. But he's going to need a miracle, I reckon, to keep on scoring some goals and help Sampdoria stay out of relegation. But we'll quickly end it on leading goal scorers. Now, Chico's been dominating, but like I said, Lazio haven't been playing that massively attacking brand so far. Lukaku seems to be flat track bully, he seems to be scoring a lot of goals against these weaker teams, but when it comes up against the bigger guns, he's he only really scored against Lazio in that COVID season. I think it was the same thing against Juventus. He only scored from the penalty, I think, against Juventus in that COVID season. He failed to. I'm not sure if he's even scored against Chiellini and Bonucci in open play in any competition, but. Obviously Chiellini's gone. So you got Lukaku, you got Tammy Abraham, you got Victor Osimhen, you got Chiro. I think the goals might be shared at Milan. I think they might share the goals a little bit too much for them to have a leading goal scorer.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But who do you see taking out the leading goal scorer this early on?
It's a tough one. Look, I can never write off Chiro because he's just done it too many times. But, that in mind with your point being they're not very attacking minded of late. Possibly Victor Osimhen. With Napoli being so damn attacking, it's inevitable that he's just going to be a goal scoring machine,
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Victor Osimhen. He's had just terrible injuries. He just seems to be injury.
That's right.
I think he's going to be one of these players, that in 10 years' time he's going to be world famous. He's going to be known all around the world at such a high level. I think he really is a great player.
He's a beast.
I'm a big fan of Pellegrini for Roma, and I think that he could help Abraham score goals as well. I guess it all depends on Mourinho's sort of attacking style as well, because that has to come to play with. And I forgot Vlahovic as well. Now,
I thought of him too. Yeah.
Yeah, now he's another one that he's already got quite a few goals. To start the season. I think he's on 3 and 5, but I think that this is going to be well contested, this leading goal scorer. I really do. I'm not sure if Dybala takes penalties or Tammy or Pellegrini takes the. I'm not sure who takes the penalties, but this could be a season where penalties actually decide it. Because I know when Chiro won, everyone said, he won because of the penalties, but he didn't. He actually won straight out. If you took penalties away from everybody, he still had 21 goals, I think it was. So so I think this could come down to penalties, to be honest. Whoever's taking them. And Lautaro Martinez is another one as well. Like, he could be taking goals off Lukaku as well. So, I'm going to hope, and I'm going to go Victor Osimhen as well. And I hope he gets it. I hope that Napoli actually really smash it this year, because everyone wants to see, a Napoli return to the top, and I'd like it for Spalletti as well. So
I was always a fan of Spalletti.
Yeah, so all right, we'll leave it there, and hopefully we'll be back next week.
Before you go, who's your top 4 that can take it out?
I think AC Milan, definitely. AC Milan to win it. I have to see Juventus in there. I'm not going to say they're coming second, but just with their depth, when they get them back, I think that they have to be there. I think that Napoli will be there as well. And that last spot is just, can Udinese hold it up? I don't know. Probably not. They're probably looking at about 6th, 7th. And then Atalanta, I just didn't expect them to be there. But, they played against Milan. They played credible. So, I'd say Atalanta.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you feel that with Atalanta not being in the Champions League this year, that they can focus a little bit more on the Serie A and it'll make a difference? Or do you think that the Europa League will still take it out of them?
Look, most definitely, obviously, Europe takes a lot, concentration out of the league. I think that it depends how much Atalanta want to win, like any other team in Europe. I think that it's as long as there's all teams are in Europe, whoever obviously gets knocked off the perch will have a better advantage of winning the league or going far. So I think regardless of Champions League or Europa, depending how bad they really want the Europa, even the conference, I think that they're still going to have their eyes on the prize and try and balance it that way.
Yeah. I think that that's the good thing about AC Milan already being in the Champions League last year, having such young players now that they're a little bit more developed. A couple of those younger players are key players now. Tonali's had the breakout season, so I think that Milan will cope with it the best this year. I don't think they rely on Ibra like they used to. They got far more. They bring in some really good signings, so I think that Milan will handle it the best, and that's why I think that Milan will win the league. I feel like juggling the two competitions, I feel like they're ready for it, and I think that they'll go far in both, to be honest. But yeah, Milan to win, and Milan to get out of the group in the Champions League as well.
Yeah.
All right, we'll leave it there, and I hope everyone liked the podcast. Just click the like button if you did. Go find our YouTube channel and subscribe there. Ciao.